March 15th, 44 BC. The Ides of March. In the heart of Rome, Julius Caesar walks into the theater of Pompeii. He is calm, confident. He has just been named dictator for life. His enemies are silent. His allies cheer. But in the shadows of the Senate chamber, 60 men wait. Senators, supposed patriots. Some are friends, others are distant allies. A few are family. They do not speak, but in their robes are hidden daggers. When Caesar enters, they surround him. They strike. Once, twice, a third time. 23 wounds, and in minutes, the most powerful man in the Roman world lies dead at the feet of a statue, covered in blood, betrayed by those he trusted most. The conspirators raise their blades high, shouting, "Liberty!" They believe they have saved the Republic. But they are wrong, because what follows is not peace, not freedom, but chaos, civil war, fire, fury, and the end of everything they claim to protect. You've heard the story of Julius Caesar's assassination, but today you'll hear the story of those who killed him, and how almost every single one of them met a violent, disgraceful, or tragic end. They thought they were killing a tyrant, but in the end, it was the Republic that died. Why they killed Caesar. To understand why the senators turned on Caesar, you have to understand what Rome had become. For centuries, Rome was a republic, not a democracy exactly, but a state where power was shared between elected officials, laws, and tradition. Senators held sway, consuls ruled for a single year, no kings, no tyrants. But by 44 BC, the republic was breaking. Corruption ran deep, elections were bought, violence filled the streets, generals became warlords, and politics became a battlefield. And at the center of it all was Julius Caesar. Charismatic, ruthless, brilliant. He had conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, defeated Pompeii, taken control of Rome, and in 44 BC, he declared himself dictator for life. To some, this was salvation. Rome needed order. But to others, this was the end of the Republic. Enter the Liberators. A group of senators, calling themselves the Liberatores, conspired to kill Caesar. They saw themselves as patriots, guardians of tradition, protectors of liberty. Leading them were two men. Marcus Junius Brutus, a noble idealist, descended from the man who helped found the Republic. Gaius Cassius Longinus, a hardened soldier and tactician, skeptical and cold. They gathered allies, Decimus Brutus, Trebonius, Casca, and over 60 others. Many were former supporters of Caesar, men he had promoted, protected, trusted. But ambition, fear, and principle collided, and so they sharpened their knives. The assassination, the Ides of March. On the morning of March 15th, 44 BC, Caesar was scheduled to attend a Senate meeting in the theater of Pompeii. He almost didn't go. His wife, Calpurnia, had nightmares of his death. Omens were everywhere. Strange animals birthed in the streets, blood in the water, but Caesar dismissed them. He went anyway. At the theater, senators rose to greet him, but as he walked past the curia, they closed in. Servilius Casca struck first, a clumsy stab to the shoulder. Caesar turned, stunned. "Casca, you villain, what are you doing?" Then the others attacked. Brutus stabbed him in the thigh. Cassius slashed his face. Decimus lunged at his back. Caesar fought until he saw Brutus. And then he stopped. His final words, whispered or imagined, "You too, Brutus." He fell at the foot of Pompey's statue, the very man he had defeated in civil war, covered in blood, alone, silent. The conspirators stood over his body, blades red, hands trembling. But instead of cheers, there was silence. They stepped out into the streets of Rome, expecting celebration. But the people were horrified. They did not see heroes. They saw murderers. And the tide began to turn. The fallout. Rome turns on the assassins. After Caesar's death, the conspirators tried to take control. They gave speeches claiming that they had saved the Republic. They expected the people to rally. Instead, the people wept. Then came Mark Antony, Caesar's ally, consul, opportunist. At Caesar's funeral, Antony read his will aloud. It stunned the crowd. Caesar had left money for every Roman citizen. He had left gardens for the public. He had named his great-nephew Octavian as his heir. The crowd exploded in grief and rage. They rioted. They built a pyre in the streets. They burned Caesar's body in public, howling for justice. The tide had turned. The assassins, once senators, were now fugitives. They fled the city, splintering across the empire, and slowly, one by one, they began to die.
The tragic fate of the key conspirators. Let us now tell the fate of the men who stabbed Caesar, the liberatores. Marcus Junius Brutus, the face of the conspiracy, intelligent, idealistic, and deeply conflicted. After fleeing Rome, Brutus went east to gather forces. He and Cassius raised an army in Macedonia. In 42 BC, they faced Antony and Octavian at the Battle of Philippi. At first, they won. But then, disaster. Cassius, hearing false reports of Brutus's death, killed himself. When Brutus learned the truth, he wept. Then, days later, he too fell on his sword. His final words, "Virtue, you were but a name." His body was buried by Antony with honor, but his dream died with him. Caius Cassius Longinus, cynical, calculating, the real engine of the plot. He fought bravely at Philippi, but after a tactical failure, he received false news that Brutus had died. Believing all was lost, he asked his slave to kill him. His head was sent to Antony. He died not knowing that Brutus still lived and still had a chance. Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus, one of Caesar's closest friends and betrayers. He was trusted enough to escort Caesar to the Senate on the day of the murder. After the assassination, he tried to rally troops in Cisalpine Gaul, but support faded. He was betrayed by his own soldiers, captured, and executed in 43 BC. Some say his head was sent to Antony. Publius Servilius Casca, the man who struck the first blow. He fled with Brutus, but never recovered from the guilt. After the defeat at Philippi, he took his own life. Trebonius, once a trusted general, he was later captured by Caesarian loyalist Dolabella. Dolabella tortured him for days, then executed him publicly in Asia Minor. Lucius Tillius Cimber. He famously grabbed Caesar's toga, exposing him to the first stab. After Philippi, he vanished from history. Some say he died in battle. Others say he was executed by Octavian's men. Either way, he never returned. Gaius Ligarius, a frail man once pardoned by Caesar for rebellion, joined Brutus, died at Philippi. His final act was to curse the gods. Other conspirators. Most died on the run. Many were captured and executed in Egypt, Syria, or Gaul. Some tried to return to civilian life, only to be hunted down by Caesar's supporters. None held power again. None lived in peace. Caesar's ghost, propaganda, omens, and legend. After Caesar's death, the supernatural took over the story. Whispers of omens filled Rome. A comet burned in the sky for 7 nights. Storms battered the city. Statues wept blood. People said Caesar's spirit walked the earth. Before the Battle of Philippi, Brutus was visited in his tent by a dark figure. When he asked who it was, the shadow replied, "I am your evil spirit. We shall meet again at Philippi." And they did. This tale is spread like wildfire. It wasn't just politics anymore. It was divine vengeance. And Augustus, Caesar's heir, used it masterfully. He called himself Divi Filius, the son of a god. He built temples to Caesar, minted coins with his face, and ensured that every man who killed him was remembered as a traitor. The republic they tried to save was destroyed. The irony. The conspirators believed they were saving the republic, but in killing Caesar, they paved the way for an empire. The people rejected them. The Senate lost its authority. Out of the ashes rose Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The republic, with its votes, checks and voices, was dead. In trying to preserve freedom, the assassins buried it. They killed one man and created a dynasty. In the end, the story of Caesar's death is not just a tale of betrayal. It is a tragedy of consequence. The men who killed him believed in something noble, a Rome of tradition, freedom, law. But history does not care for intentions, only for outcomes. And the outcome was brutal. Civil war, totalitarianism, the death of a republic, and the rise of an empire. Not one of Caesar's killers lived a peaceful life. Most died violently. Many were betrayed. Some took their own lives. And all were erased, not just from power, but from honor. Their names became curses. Their statues were torn down. Only Caesar remained. Ironically, in killing him, they made him immortal.